Hey folks, it's no secret that I've had Invincible on the mind for a little while now, and I thought it'd be fun to make a video that has the potential to age just so badly. Spoilers for the first half of Invincible Season 2, and by extension any comics that cover the same material, although this isn't a comparison video like some of my others. On that front, I guess I'm also technically spoiling things that'll probably happen in the future, but these are events that I think most of us can see coming a mile away, plus technically we don't know what they're gonna do yet. Basically, get off my back about spoilers, you've been warned. The Thraxans, a race of bug aliens, were introduced to the show in Season 2, Episode 3, and from what I can gauge, they're one of the show's more controversial elements. When I first read the comics, I felt similar to the way that a lot of people seem to feel now. Aesthetically, they feel like kind of a shark jumping moment for the series. They look silly, they have weird lore, and without context, they honestly feel kind of pointless. But as I hope to show, the Thraxans are a brilliant addition to Invincible that managed to drive the point home in a way no cleverly written human characters ever could. To explain, I should probably begin by telling you that I love redemption arcs. Like, a lot. Call me tender-hearted, but I enjoy when someone, often a person who does not deserve it in the slightest, comes to learn the error of their ways and turns a new leaf. And I recommend applying that idea to the real world. Redemption arcs can, of course, be done in numerous ways, and depending on the circumstances, they have different stakes. In a romantic comedy, a redemption arc is generally only a personal thing. A person apologizes to their friends and family, we get our fun little reunion at the end, and all is well in the world. By contrast, in stories like Star Wars and Avatar, we have to deal with the entirely different angle of the redeemed's impact on the wider world. Star Wars in particular handles this somewhat poorly, pretty much glossing over all of Darth Vader's crimes in favor of the more personal angle, which is handled with the weight that it demands. It's all well and good because the original trilogy doesn't linger all that much on Vader's personal impact on the galaxy, but it starts to feel a bit bizarre as they've expanded the lore and given us a fuller perspective on all the things he did. But Invincible has included a lot of those elements from the start, so it doesn't really have much excuse if it fails to account for Omni-Man's genocidal intentions if it intends to take him down the full redemption arc path. And one of the best ways to do that is to first help us understand why Nolan is bad in the first place. Not just mechanically, oh, he was raised evil, but emotionally. That way we can deconstruct those ideas in a way that feels natural and believable. The Thraxans are one fantastic tool that Invincible is using to trick us into not just sympathizing with the murderous maniac, but actively empathizing. So let's get into the correct mindset to interpret why this is. Omni-Man spends most of his time in Season 1, Episode 8 trying desperately to justify why killing humans is not morally wrong. His argument essentially goes as follows, and yes, I am going to steel man the fictional fascist. Human lives are infinitesimally short relative to Viltrumite lives. Humans are physically much weaker than Viltrumites. The most valuable traits in Viltrumite society are longevity and strength. Therefore, human lives are not particularly valuable. Now, a sociologically minded person can already kind of interpret this. They'll understand the extent to which culture and upbringing can mold a person's perspective, especially if most of their socialization takes place in isolation from outside influences. While I hope no one watching this video believes in any supremacist ideology, I don't think it's too difficult to understand how a society designed to produce bigots might produce bigots. Still, I'm a human, so it's hard to relate to a fictional species hating my species to the extent that it does, even though Season 1, Episode 5 does somewhat tie Viltrumite ideology to real-world racism, with Nolan's language pretty blatantly mirroring actual racist rhetoric, but that's a whole other can of worms. Okay, back on topic. Thraxans. They're weird. Their political system is nonsensical. They don't have many distinguishing characteristics between them, meaning it's hard to recognize them as individuals. Most importantly, their lifespans are comically short, living mere months at best. Immediately upon reading that fact, I got weirdly uncomfortable. I mean, what's the point, right? A human lifespan is considered tragically short if it lasts 30 years. 12 months? That sounds like a joke. I don't know how I would cope knowing that that's how long I had to spend my entire existence. And therein lies the brilliance. I don't know how commonly discussed this is, but I haven't personally seen anyone talking about it. By presenting us with a species whose experience is so drastically different from our own in a very fundamental way, the show puts us in the position of a Viltrumite. Well, okay, not exactly. We ideally haven't been raised to view people with shorter lifespans than our own as inferior, but in lieu of that, we still feel pity. And yet, our pity is meaningless. Thraxans feel joy, love, companionship as much as we do. They have the same capacity to suffer as any sapient being. They look like bugs, something we're programmed from birth to be disgusted by, but who cares? Just as a Viltrumite who thinks 70-year human lifespans are pointless is wrong, so too is our first instinct to think a 1-year lifespan is pointless. By placing us in this position, we become better able to see how a lifetime of conditioning could lead a person to the beliefs that Omni-Man holds, and we can especially see why those beliefs might be so flimsy when they're confronted. I specifically want to draw attention to the issue of suffering, because that's one of the most important characteristics that a being can have when it comes to their moral consideration. Happiness and pleasure are important feelings, but if a person can't suffer, it becomes harder to worry about what happens to them, because we know they'll be fine regardless. As Kurt Cobain put it, it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings. As it turns out though, the length of one's lifespan, their physical attractiveness, their strength or lack thereof, have nothing to do with their ability to suffer. The show then forces us to consider this as it shows us the field of dead Thraxans and realize that this is equally as reprehensible as what happened to Chicago in Season 1. Omni-Man can be redeemed because the gross beliefs he holds are a bastardization of feelings most any of us can feel, and if we don't take them to horrible conclusions, then he doesn't have to either. The show forces us to reckon with the fact that strength and longevity have nothing to do with the value of life, and that our value comes entirely from our experiences. And I just think that's neat. Anyhow, I won't belabor the point further. If you like this sort of thing, I appreciate all the subscribing and liking and whatever. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject. We're shockingly close to 1,000 subscribers, which I mention mostly in the hopes of being able to look back on videos from this time and see how far we've come. But in any event, I appreciate that we've gotten here at all. So, thanks for watching, peoples.